Have you ever been ghosted on a business call or perhaps by even a friend? Or maybe that's you that's avoiding that awkward no. And here's the thing, we all hate giving and hearing no. We're essentially rejecting or being rejected when we hear that. What if I told you that learning to hear and say no could be one of the most freeing skills that you could develop? So let's talk about that. First up, let me share with you why I am so motivated to share this particular lesson, because it's really personal. It's something that I've been noticing a lot just by living life. No is a very, very powerful word. For some reason, that little word, 2 letters, gets us into so much crap, both voluntarily and involuntarily. The reason I'm especially motivated to share this today is because I was ghosted yesterday. I had a business call with someone that I knew and have known for 4 or 5 years at this point. I thought we had a decent friendship. We're not close by any means, and we're just a business as acquaintances. She used to work for someone that I used to do work for, and she's known me well. I haven't crossed any boundaries. I hadn't done anything crazy, but I thought that maybe we could be business partners and maybe we can work together. She's in the same space that I'm in, and maybe we can help each other out. So I reached out to her and asked her if she'd be interested in the idea. She said, yeah, maybe. I said, cool. Would you be okay with maybe doing a Zoom call next week, which was yesterday? She said, yeah. And she gave me her email, and I sent her an email invitation, a calendar invitation. Everything was great. Or so I thought, because I show up to the call yesterday and she doesn't show up. So I wait a while, and then I go to message her on Facebook to say, hey, you still coming on? And from the best I can tell, she's blocked me and deleted me. There's no person there anymore. No, I could be over exaggerating the whole thing, but the timing of it all just seems too coincidental. I can't even find her on Facebook, whereas before she had 3 or 4 profiles, which then begged the question, what did I do wrong? How did I cross some boundaries that maybe I shouldn't have crossed? Did I do something? Did I say something? And I know for a fact I didn't. I don't operate like that. I always maintain high level of integrity, especially when I'm talking to females, because I don't want to ever be accused of anything wrong. Now, having confirmed that internally, the only other thing that I can think of, which makes perfect sense, is that she was unable to say no to me. And as a general practice, what I try to do now when I ask people for a favor or for any request like this is I try to preface it with, feel free to say no. You're under no obligation. And it's an interesting little line that I add, and it lets people off the hook. It lets them know that they're empowered to say no, when in reality, they're always empowered. But for some reason, people have a tough time with that. So then it begs the question, why do we struggle to say no? Here's my theories at best. This is all I can think of. I've lived a good amount of life, and I've concluded that it comes down to a couple of things. One, I think essentially we've been conditioned throughout our lives, and we've been raised to be good, friendly individuals. Now, I don't know personally if that was ever implicitly said to us that, hey, if someone asks you for something, always say yes. But for some reason, I feel like it plays itself out when it relates to questions when people are asking us for things. And I think that's one of the big lessons. Just because people ask you for things does not mean that you're required to do it. It's a question. Now, if it's your girlfriend or boyfriend or your boss, then it might actually be an expectation and a demand. But in most cases, it really is a question. And for some reason, we have a tough time saying no. So then we say yes. Better yet, we dodge it. We actually go around and around, and we're like, let me check my calendar. Let me get back to you. We do all these weird things to deflect for the moment so we can say no later down the line, because in their face, we have a tough time saying no. And to me, it's silly. But what ends up happening in many cases, and I know this has happened with me with a handful of people in my lives, they'll end up messaging me later saying, I can't make it, or worse yet, they just don't say anything. They just blow it off and ghost me, but without ever committing to it. The worst case scenario of all that is when they do say yes, and then they just don't show up, or they give me a last minute, oh, I can't make it, my kid has diarrhea. I'm sorry, kids do sometimes have diarrhea, so that is a valid excuse and justification, but it happens a lot. Are you tired of burning through your marketing budget faster than you can say ROI? Posting on social media, crickets. Running ads, more crickets. Watching your marketing strategy flop like a fish out of water while you quietly sob into your coffee. Fear not, this episode of the Teevee Show Podcast is brought to you by, me. Teevee the Marketer, founder of Rockstar.marketing, here to stop the madness. We take your marketing dollars and actually make them do something, like work. Want video content and ads that'll stop your audience from scrolling faster than they stop for a baby panda video? Yeah, we do that. So if you're done setting your marketing dollars on fire, visit www.rockstar.marketing and let's turn those crickets into cash. Now, why do we hate hearing no? I think that on some level we feel like it's an attack on us. Maybe we're not good enough. Maybe we don't deserve the attention or the yes from that individual. And I think that's, if we're going to do this right and we're going to get better at saying no and receiving no, it starts with us, and we have to get better at hearing no. People, when you ask them for a favor, do have a choice. I've actually told my girlfriend this on some instances. I'm like, hey, honey, she'll ask me for something, and then, I'll say no, because I try to practice this and try to be direct. And she's like, okay. And then, she's lost her mind a little bit, and I'll ask her, I'll say, hey, babe, it sounded like I didn't really have a choice in your ask, in your question, in your request. And she's like, oh. And she stopped and reevaluated, and we're able to talk about it. And I know that sounds a little aggressive, but I promise it isn't. It's just me trying to identify, like, hey, what's happened? All of a sudden I'm under attack, or you're coming at me. And I'm like, all I said was no to your request. I thought it was a question. I thought it was a request, not a demand. And that was my way of trying to address the obvious thing that's happening, because I think that she felt like I was saying no to her. And it's a lot of times it's not about the individual. It's about the instance. It's the context. It's the timing, whatever it may be. It doesn't matter. We have a right to say no. And that's the big lesson to me. We have a right to say no. And in doing so, you're actually doing the other person a favor by being honest. What's wrong with being honest? My invitation to you is, find instances in your day-to-day life where you're being asked to do things that you really don't want to do. Just say no. I started doing that a few years ago when I noticed that this was a thing. When the feeling that I had to do things and overextending myself got to be too much, and I realized that it was me. I was saying yes. I was agreeing to all these crazy things. And I realized that I can say no, so I started to practice it. And often, what will happen, in some people's opinion, you're going to become a bit of a jerk and an asshole. And you know what? I can live with that. I've actually have a reputation with a handful of people that have said to me that they know and they expect me to say no, but they still ask, because I invite them to ask. I never say, don't ask me. I just say no to this particular thing. I have a friend named Eddie who has said to me in the past, is like, what I really appreciate about you is that you just tell me no. You don't just lie to me and mislead me and get me believing that you might actually do the thing that I'm asking you to do. You just straight up, and I cut my losses and I move on to the next person. I appreciate that, he said. I'm like, okay, great, thanks. I like to think that I'm not an asshole. I'm just being direct. But find those moments in your day-to-day where you could possibly just say no. And it doesn't have to be like, I've done this though. In text specifically, I'll send a no. People ask me like, hey, you have some free time? I'll just say no. And I'll usually do that with family because that gives me a little more wiggle room. But then I try to add a few fluffy words to make sure that the individual knows that I'm not just being an absolute jerk, and that indeed I just know I'm busy, no, don't have time, no, I'm not interested. That's usually my go-tos because it's kind of addresses the thing. Because just saying no is kind of comes off as too direct. It's going to hurt people's feelings. No, I'm not interested. Hey, are you interested in saving money? No, I hate saving money. That's actually a line I say to people at the grocery stores when they're trying to hit me up for whatever random thing offer in the grocery store where I'm trying to shop. I hate that, by the way. At the end of the day, there's only so much time that we have available to us. We can't say yes to everything. And I think a lot of people will do that out of a sense of obligation. And at the end of the week, they find themselves stretched too thin. There's only so much time in the day. So saying no allows us to say yes to things that really matter to us. It opens up our calendar. It allows beautiful things to bloom in our garden, as opposed to just saying yes to too many things. Say yes to the things that matter. And I'll leave you with this final thought from the author Derek Sivers, of whom I am a big fan of. And that is, hell yes or hell no. Chances are, if you're hesitating to say yes, that means it's probably a hell no. You have to make sure to maximize your energy, optimize your energy. There's only so many hours in the day and our life. So put it into things that you really want to be invested in, things you want to work on, nonprofits, causes that you want to work on, skills, whatever it may be. Put your effort into those things and say no to the things that don't matter. And the love of God. Say no to people. It's okay. Be honest, be upfront. I think, at least if they're decent human beings, they're not going to be offended and they might actually thank you. Thank you for tuning in again. My name is Teevee. I appreciate your time and your life. If you enjoyed this video, then you might enjoy this one where I talk about how I was able to nurture family relationships with my siblings as well as with my daughters by being very intentional. I talk about how I did it here. Check it out and let me know what you think. Bye-bye, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.